Hey, we're getting ready for America's college football drunk uncle. It's the Ole Miss versus Arkansas game. This is the pregame show. We're going to be joined by Macon Gillespie. Hope everybody enjoys it. Let's continue this day off right. The LSU, man. Oh, they just look terrible. Anyway, let's go.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, sorry. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis alongside Macon Gillespie, and we're doing our Ole Miss pregame show as the Rebels are getting ready to play the Arkansas Razorbacks in the America's College Football drunk uncle of college football games. There's some other stuff we're going to talk about of games that are going on right now as well. And how are you doing, John?
I'm doing well. I think it's a very apt description of what this game has become since really, I guess, 2001 is the earliest crazy one I can remember.
The hit was pretty crazy too. Chris Mitchell will be at the game tonight.
Really?
He had a hit in 1990 where Ole Miss beat like a number 12 or 13 ranked Arkansas by tackling him at the 1 yard line in the perfect corner. It was. This game's always been crazy. Always.
Yeah. And it's if last week didn't get everybody's nerves on edge a little bit, I think at least leading up to pregame this week we'll do that, because I think fans are pretty used to some pretty weird ones against Arkansas.
Yeah, and people are justifiably, I think, nervous about this game because of what has happened, historically with this game. But I cannot believe, I'm sorry, Maryland just completely screwed up at the end of the game and threw like a 4-yard pass inside the 10-yard line, but going into halftime, and could not call a timeout and kick a field goal. So it's 10-10 versus Ohio State. Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. But fans are noticeably on edge about this game because of the craziness of this rivalry. And I do not think that Ole Miss is going to overlook them. I do not think, no matter what we're talking about, we're not overlooking them because of what happened in Fayetteville just a year ago when it was like 35-7 at halftime and there are 3 200-yard rushers. But it's a situation to where Ole Miss has a chance to build, if that makes sense. This is about building on what can happen. September was about survival. Ole Miss going 4-1 in the month of September. They survived that month. All their goals are in front of them. This month is about building. Get the win versus Arkansas. Get the win versus Auburn. Get the win versus Vanderbilt. 3 games that are traditionally tricky, shall we say. And if you can do that, you earn the right to play against Texas A&M. And if what happens today is what I think is going to happen today, that game turns into like the game of the century for Ole Miss. But yeah. I'm pretty impressed what can happen. It's friends and family game in Starkville today, by the way.
Yeah. And I think Ole Miss will be favored in all. Well, they're obviously favored against Arkansas, but against Auburn and Vanderbilt, I mean, those are games that Ole Miss should be favored in. And so the way I look at it is, yes, it's a building opportunity, but if Ole Miss takes care of business, I mean, they're 7-1 when A&M rolls into town. And I'm not saying that, hey, Ole Miss fans should overlook the next 3 games, because we know historically what can happen when that's the case. But Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss is the better team in all 3 of those games, including today. And so, I understand the historical nervousness, but it's frankly about staying healthy and taking care of business, in my opinion.
We saw against LSU an offense for the first time in, heck, maybe since Lane Kiffin's been the coach. Probably the last time was during that 2020 season when they had Elijah Moore. But you saw an offense for this team that really came alive. And LSU's defense is their LSU's defense. There's not much we can do about that. But we've played defenses that bad before, and this is what I say whenever anybody talks about the game that happened against Mercer. We've played teams like that before Rarely have we put up 55 points and 700 yards of offense. So schematically, they did things right. Against Arkansas, I think they need to continue that. You need to continue to kind of build off of what you did against LSU, against Arkansas. You're not going to have 700 yards today. You're not going to have 55 points. But I think Ole Miss needs to try to get into the 40s, have over 500 yards of offense today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good recipe because right now I don't think Arkansas can survive a shootout. I don't think if Ole Miss hits that kind of mark in the 40s, I think that really shows that, if I was told that, I think, okay, Ole Miss wins the game. Because offensively right now, I just don't see Arkansas being able to keep up with that kind of scoring. And I could be wrong. I mean, again, this game has a tendency to get crazy, but looking at it on paper, that's how I feel.
Caden Hamlin with the question, is Raheem Sanders healthy for Arkansas? He's as healthy as he's been this season. Mm-hmm. I still don't think he's 100%, but he's kind of like probably Trey Harris is right now.
Yeah, I don't think he's 100%, but he is. He will play, and I think he is as healthy as he's been this year. Yes.
And I talked to John Neighbors, and I've talked to a lot of people associated with the Arkansas program over the course of the weekend, and this football season has not gone like they expected. This football season has been a difficult slog, kind of, for the Arkansas Razorbacks this year. And because of that, it's going from bad to worse. They're in that process of going like the downward slide, not as a program, just as a season. And they're at the point now where the fans are really lashing out as the coaches, and the coaches are starting to talk back. They're, fairly early on in the process. Freedom of Information Acts were filed this week, and Dan Enos responded to several students after the Texas A&M game last year, talking and critiquing his offense. This really is like the desperation game for the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Yeah, and I think they come out swinging, and that paired with KJ Jefferson having played high school ball in Sardis just down the road from Oxford, this game is always circled for him a little bit. So I do think they come out swinging a little bit because their backs are against the wall. And this one is important for KJ. But at the end of the day, I just think Ole Miss is better and they're more talented. And frankly, when you have that kind of desperation where coaches are responding to fans like that or students, that's a bad sign as to where things are. I mean, that shows that people are in a bad headspace on both sides, the coaching staff and the fans. So to me, that's not a good sign. I do think they come out with some fire, but at the end of the day, I think that stuff is a little difficult to overcome.
Yeah, if you're going around college football today, Missouri's currently driving on LSU. Newsflash there, right? Up 25-17. They're probably going to punch it in the end zone. It's going to be a 2-score game that LSU is going to have to overcome. Maryland and Ohio State, they're a 10-10 score at the moment. Oklahoma is leading Texas at halftime, 20-17, and Mississippi State is up on Western Michigan, 24-14 at the moment as well. If you're sitting here and looking at around college football, nice slate as we're getting ready right now for the Texas A&M Aggies and the Alabama Crimson Tide. This is a game. I know we make jokes about Texas A&M being a cult. I know we do that. This is a game that all Ole Miss fans should be Texas A&M fans.
Yeah, if you're rooting for Alabama in this, you don't understand what's kind of at stake for Ole Miss down the road if Ole Miss is able to keep piling up wins. Ole Miss needs a Texas A&M who has beaten Alabama to come into Oxford in however many weeks that is, 4 or so, something like that, because there's a bye week mixed in. Ole Miss needs A&M to win today to feel really good about its shot when the Aggies roll into Oxford later in the season. And you mentioned that about this really good early slate. I was talking to one of my friends. I was like, I don't remember at least this season, an 11 o'clock slate that has been this good. Because you got Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, Missouri. Both of those were games I was really interested in. Mississippi State will beat Western Michigan, but
I'm
I was a
beginning to
little,
wonder if they'll cover.
yeah, I was a little curious about that one too because of that offense. So I mean, it was a really good play. It's one that I'm pretty locked into, and it's a really good way to kind of push into that 2:30 window where Ole Miss fans should be rooting for Texas A&M.
I think, by the way, Missouri just lost the game against LSU. They attempted a field goal. It either got blocked, something happened, but LSU's going to get the ball back down one score. And just like last week in the second quarter and the third quarter, they just kind of started to assert control. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter. But I think LSU might be all right in this game. Now, we're going to try something right here, and I could mess this up to all high heaven. So bear with me there, okay? But I'm going to present on my screen, okay?
Okay.
And let's see. Which one do I need to present? Arkansas and Mississippi. All right. So this is the screen that we have right now. This is the FanDuel betting lines that are going on. There is no parlay that they're talking about at the moment. We always talk about the individual parlays that is going on, but there's not one this time. You have a situation, Ole Miss, the line has moved up to 12.5 points, which it's been at a point where it probably needed to move up anyway. Because if you look at the 75 to 80% of the money and the spread is on Ole Miss. They should have moved that line up during the week. They didn't, real similar to what they did with LSU last week. So that made me worry a little bit about it. Now it's going up quite a bit because I think a decent amount of money is going in on the Rebs at the moment as well. But Ole Miss is favored by 12.5 points. The over-under, by the way, has gone down. It's went from 63.5 to 61.5. And if you look at something interesting here, these are the final scores that you can bet on. And one thing that's interesting, now there's a couple of Arkansas wins that has a relatively low odds, like Arkansas 27, Ole Miss 24. You can get that at relatively low odds at the moment. The real low odds, as you can imagine, are on Ole Miss wins. And if you look in the 31 to 17, 31, 38 to 24, that range, you can make some hay as far as that's kind of where the low odds are. That's where they think this game is going to end up. Like Ole Miss 34, Arkansas 27, that's down pretty low. 34-31, down pretty low. 35 to 17. They think that Ole Miss is going to score between 38 and 41 points in this game, and they just wonder if Arkansas can match them, essentially.
Yeah. And you can see our staff predictions at thegrovereport.com, but I actually do have Ole Miss covering in this one. I don't think it's necessarily going to be evident necessarily from the start that Ole Miss is going to cover, because I do think early on Arkansas will come out playing, with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. But I do think Ole Miss pulls away eventually. And I do think that they cover. The last I had seen, the line was at 13. But it being at 12.5 is still a move up towards Ole Miss from where it was earlier in the week. So
it was 11.5 on FanDuel all week.
Yeah,
it just stayed at 11.5, and today going up to 12.5. That tells me a decent amount of money has come in on Ole Miss in this game on the day of the game. Actually, let me look at their spread real quick. I can confirm that pretty quick. Let's see. Oh, wait, what am I doing? Okay, there's Tennessee, Alabama. Right now, 77% of the bets are on Ole Miss, and 73% of the money is on Ole Miss.
Yeah, that will move a line. And it's, to me, we can read in sometimes with stuff like that to show to kind of pad our predictions a little bit because, and it's not an exact science, obviously, but if a lot of money and a lot of the bet percentage is coming in on Ole Miss, to me that indicates, okay, yeah, Ole Miss is going to have to mess up a lot to lose this game. So
yeah, I think this is a situation to where if Ole Miss plays their best and Arkansas plays this best, Ole Miss wins this game by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
If for Arkansas to win this game, they're going to have to play above their average, and Ole Miss is going to have to play below it. It's as simple as that. So if you play clean, don't turn the football over, don't give up explosive plays, I think you are going to be all right. LSU's inside the 15-yard line, by the way.
Fine. Yeah, I agree. And, I know a lot of times fans, especially Ole Miss fans, can go back and look at historically what a series has been like. But at the same time, these two teams are different completely than what we saw in 2015, than what we saw in 2021. I mean, it's a completely different roster, completely different storylines, strengths, everything. So, I don't encourage, and I understand it's easy to fall into that, but I don't encourage fans to look at, okay, regardless of what the line is, this game is going to be hectic and close. And it may be, but just because that happened historically does not mean it's going to happen today.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right on that. I'm not a big person on, quote, history anyway, even though I know, like I said, I've been talking about this series being the drunk uncle of college football all week and exactly what is going on. But it's not a situation. If Ole Miss plays their best, the history is not going to have anything to do with saving Arkansas today.
Yeah. Fourth and 25 doesn't impact what kind of game Jackson Dart and Quinshon Judkins have. It just doesn't have any impact.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing to think about when Jackson Dart, whenever 4th and 25 happened, Jackson Dart was like 12 years old. Jackson Dart doesn't know anything about 4th and 25. I do think that one problem that fans are so big on history. And right now, Auburn fans are going through this really consistently a lot. And I see this all the time. They like to put up the overall record between Auburn and Ole Miss. So that doesn't matter. That win, Cam Newton is not going to save you against Ole Miss this year.
Yeah, Cam Newton's not coming out of the tunnel. Yeah,
Bo Jackson is not on the other side of the field. And that stuff like that is just absolutely nuts. But what can happen, I do think, is it can become a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, okay? If you hear over and over again, this game is nuts, this game is nuts, this is always going to be a close game, the confidence level is going to go down on the team that is the favorite a little bit because they heard all the time about how the other team is going to play up and it just doesn't matter what you do. And that is a little bit of that bringing that level down. The inverse is the underdog hearing all that is going to raise their level because they think they naturally have a chance. It's the Vanderbilt thing that they can beat Ole Miss for whatever reason. So they raise their level in that particular game. I do think that in college football, it can become a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. Well, and to break it down even further, I mean, I'm not a therapist or anything, but it's like the attitude you carry into a given day. Like if you wake up and it's like, okay, this day is going to suck, then regardless of what happens, your day is going to suck. Does that make sense? Kind of, I mean, it's the same thing. That self-fulfill, your attitude, what you hear, your thought process coming into the game, that's going to impact things. So, that is where that historical thing can still kind of come up. But again, at the end of the day, it's like you said. I mean, the previous years do not, and in today's world of college football, the previous week doesn't really impact what the next week is going to hold. So,
yeah, if you look at it, Arkansas jumped on and beat Ole Miss in Fayetteville last year. I think there might be one player, maybe two, on Ole Miss's defense that is carried over from that team. And it just, I know you want tradition. I know you want to point at that and all of that, but it's gone. That it doesn't exist in college football right now in the way it was. Used to, whenever I was a kid, you would come in as a freshman in college and you would get redshirted. And the goal was that you would have a team of fifth-year seniors out there playing football for you. Everything was a system. If you tried to do that now, the players would revolt. They would all transfer, and you would end up getting fired in like a year and a half. Football has completely changed, and I think that is for the betterment of Ole Miss. The people that complain about it on days are old school fans, that old thinking is the way that they look at it. What they need to think about is Ole Miss has the most talented team that has existed in my lifetime. They are of a chance to where if it just goes chalk, I'm not guaranteeing wins, but if it goes chalk, they're probably going to have one more team that they're the underdog against. This is Ole Miss I'm talking about here. They're putting 66,000 people in the stadium and having atmospheres that Oxford has not seen. This is all because of the current situation in college football where we can use the transfer portal and we're not on the whims of a 17-year-old athlete that is obviously going to Georgia or Alabama, and those same four schools are getting all the players. Now there's a chance for talent to matriculate down into the next tier, and that's what you're seeing at Ole Miss.
Right, and that, and this is a little bit of a side note from that, but with the 12-team playoff that's coming up starting next year, Ole Miss, I think, is the poster child for the program that can benefit the most from that. Because now suddenly you're in a place where one loss, maybe even two in certain seasons, is not going to sink your chances at getting in the tournament and competing for a national championship. Yeah. So
if everything goes the way that I think it's going to go today, Ole Miss could wake up on Monday after defeating Arkansas, a team that's right there on the edge of what the 12-team playoff would be.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. And since Lane Kiffin arrived, 2021 through this year, I guess, Ole Miss has been on that cusp at least at some point during the season. At the end of the 2021 season, they would have been in because they were number 8, I think, going into the Sugar Bowl or something like that. So, I think it's very evident that, and this is not to tailspin this into a playoff discussion, but I do think that this new system that's coming up next year is going to be good for the sport. It's going to be good for parity. And honestly, the transfer portal, regardless of what your opinions are, it's impacting that as well.
Yeah, we're talking about other things today and things like that because there's just not a lot of storylines right now between the Ole Miss and Arkansas game. Not a lot of news is broken today. You've heard all the stories on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast and over at the Grove Report about what we're looking at in this football game. And it is a big football game. This is a game that Ole Miss needs to win. Ole Miss needs to start building resume. That's what these 3 games are. The Arkansas, Auburn, and Vanderbilt game. It's about building your resume before it gets really real in the beginning of November. It really, truly is a November to remember type situation. Maryland just scored a touchdown, by the way. They're up 17-10 on Ohio State in the shoe.
Is that third quarter?
Third quarter.
Okay.
Yeah, they went straight down the field. Tagovailoa just took them straight down the field. And Ohio State could have some problems because I imagine if Maryland wins this game, first of all, Maryland's going to go way up. They're probably, what are they? They're not even ranked right now, I don't think. Yeah, they're not even ranked. So they'll end up in the 20 to 21 range.
Yeah, they've received votes, I think, but I don't think they've gotten in the poll yet.
Yeah, but if Ohio State loses this game with the way that they were just gifted a game against Notre Dame, and they have not looked good all year, you're going to see a team that falls from number 4 to like number 12. Mm-hmm. That is the type fall that Ohio State could have.
Yeah.
And Michigan, they want no part of Michigan right now.
No, right now they absolutely don't. And if Ole Miss wins today and Ohio State were to lose, those two teams may be brushing shoulders in the poll next week, somewhere in the in that same neighborhood,
And the way it goes right now, Ole Miss is on a trajectory of, and like I said, we're not overlooking. We're just having a discussion. Fans can do that. We're not actually playing the game. But Ole Miss is on a trajectory right now in the SEC for an either NY6 Bowl or the Citrus Bowl or the ReliaQuest. That's kind of the area that they are swimming in at the moment. There's a good chance at this moment that if Ohio State loses this game, it's like Ole Miss versus Ohio State in Orlando in a bowl game.
Now, wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, I mean that's almost the betting favorite at this point. And if Ole Miss goes to that bowl game, would you travel down?
I don't know. It depends. Usually, my family and I do a lot of stuff the week after Christmas as well. We usually have a big New Year's thing too, so it just kind of depends. What our family schedule looks like. We have family from Tennessee that travels down and everything, so it would just kind of depend. But regardless, that would be good for business, I guess, for both of us.
Yeah. Something I'm right now. I'm planning on doing remote broadcasts from if Ole Miss goes to a Florida Bowl, to where I'll be doing the show on site or relatively on site, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
Like I might see talk with the Citrus Bowl and everything, and try and set it up to where I do a show from Disney Springs or something like that.
Yeah.
Something silly.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of things that I'm looking for. I'm probably going to look at, obviously, getting some sponsorship and that problem. But yeah, the bowl game's going to be a corner turner for the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, because we're already, dang, John, if we're not the largest show that is out there right now, we're up there.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely weird for me being in Central Florida, not even being attached, but it kind of just shows you that fans just want to talk about their team. They don't want the day-to-day news stuff. They just want to be fans, and they've been wanting a show like this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the way that media and news cycles and things have changed over the last 10, 15 years. That's with how accessible everything is now. That's the direction most people are gravitating towards, and therefore the media landscape is changing as a result. So,
yes, LSU just took the lead, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Maryland, LSU, is Oklahoma still leading?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're inside like the 15-yard line.
Okay, I actually thought Texas would win that, and they may still. But
man, whenever I first cut on this game, you just looked and you just saw Oklahoma playing at a different level, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, they are up for this."
Yeah, and Texas's offense was slow to start. I mean, those 2 picks from Ewers and stuff. I mean, that was they didn't get off to a very good start, and Oklahoma capitalized.
Yeah, Oklahoma's about on the 2-yard line at the moment. I mean, they got a 1st and goal from the 2, which everybody knows what Jeff Lebby's doing. He's going to run inside zone 3 times.
Yep.
And there it is. There's one. He's down to the half-yard line. So
here it comes again.
Yeah, here it comes again, just really fast. But everybody knows what Jeff Lebby does. But I mean, these early games, I am so excited that this Red River rivalry game is going to be in the SEC next year.
Oh, it's huge for the conference. I think. I mean, it is. And I know some fans get weird about neutral site games. I think that this is a perfect example of when a neutral site game is executed amazingly. In a historic venue like the Cotton Bowl, I mean, when they've showed the crowd shots, that thing is packed to the brim. And to be able to have SEC branding associated with that game, that's huge. I mean, that is, you can't, I know some people sometimes make fun of the whole conference footprint thing, where how it doesn't necessarily matter as much as it used to. That is an example of how conference footprint still matters, in my opinion. Being able to claim those really 2 big brands, and when they play each other, yeah, that's huge.
Yes, Oklahoma punched it in, by the way. So Oklahoma's up 27-17.
Okay.
So yeah, it's really Western Michigan scored again, by the way. It's 31-21. And
shootout.
Yeah. Today is going about as poorly as you can for Zach Arnett. They're going to beat Western Michigan by 7 points. Everybody is going to be losing their mind. And Mississippi State, they're just doing a crowd shot right now. So just dejection.
Well, and I hate to even talk on that subject because Arnett was almost thrown into an impossible situation to begin with, right? And I think he's a really good defensive coach, but man, he was way behind the 8 ball when he was hired, and the situation that he was brought into, it's tough. And if this doesn't work out in Starkville for him, I'm hoping that he lands at a spot that is good for him and he can get his career back on track, because I really do think he's a very good defensive mind.
Yeah, and I am not comparing him to Ed Orgeron. So nobody hear that, but Ed Orgeron was hired by Ole Miss, and there's no way that Ed Orgeron shouldn't have taken that job, even though he knew he probably wasn't ready to do that. He got another opportunity at LSU, and now he is probably the coach of the greatest college football team that ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what happens, I do think Zach Arnett will get another opportunity. Touchdown Ohio State, by the way.
So that one's tied up?
Yeah, 17-17.
Okay.
But it's pretty cool what's going on. And we're going to wrap this up in a minute. But, yeah, it is not a good day in Starkville. Everybody was thinking this was going to be a 42-7 type game, 49-7. Kind of the get right game when nothing else is going to work out. And I think Western Michigan has their backup quarterback in today. I think their starter is injured.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, I saw at the beginning, it's like notable players that were out, and one
Mm-hmm.
of the players listed was a quarterback. So I don't think they would put that up there if it wasn't the starter.
Right.
So it's interesting. It just genuinely is, because Mississippi State is staring directly at, probably at best, a 4-8.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't find their victory, and I'm not willing to just give them the Southern Mississippi game. I think that game has a chance to get unbelievably weird.
It's that whenever they meet is squirrely a lot of times anyway, but again, going back to this year being different, the way neither team looks great. So is that one in Starkville or Hattiesburg this year?
It's in Starkville. Yeah,
Starkville?
Starkville, 5 days before the Ole Miss game. Whoever made that schedule should be fired with prejudice.
Yeah,
in Starkville.
That's not a good no. Because if that game is squirrely, because Southern Miss is going to be up for that one, right?
Yeah.
If that game is squirrely, man, that they're tripping and stumbling into the Egg Bowl the next week.
Yeah, the equivalent would be Ole Miss scheduling Memphis 5 days before the Egg Bowl.
Yeah, that's a bad idea. Yeah.
Gosh, LSU's defense is really not good.
Did Missouri score again, or are they just moving down the field?
No, they tackled it. They just had like a 65-yard run.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, I'm telling you, if anybody's gamblers out there, every LSU game, take the over. It doesn't matter who wins the game, take the over. This defense is terrible. Cody Schrader, the running back at Missouri, has 8 carries for 95 yards today.
That's efficient. That will play.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in good shape. LSU is compared to where they were, because it started 22-7. Actually, started worse than the Ole Miss game did.
Mm-hmm.
But they fought back just like they did against Ole Miss, and it's going to come down to who has the ball last. I think again, this is a situation where that offensive confidence is going to go down a little bit.
Oh yeah,
each one of these games like that, it is so taxing on an offense to have to score.
It weighs on your psyche because it's so much pressure.
Yeah.
Because if you think, okay, the defense can't get a stop, we have to score every possession.
Yeah.
In order to have a shot, and you just can't live like that.
I have no idea what just happened, but LSU celebrating, so it looks like they may have gotten a turnover. I think LSU's this is the path for LSU because that offense is good. That offense will hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, somebody right here. They think it's the third quarterback playing for Western Michigan.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. This is a worst case scenario for Mississippi State.
And they've got how many points right now?
It's 31-21 is the score right now.
Okay.
And the touchdowns that Mississippi State's given up is real similar to the touchdowns that LSU's given up. I mean, there's nobody in the screen. It's walk-ins essentially.
Yeah.
And this is happening against not a good situation, but Western Michigan's inside the 50-yard line going into the fourth quarter with a chance to cut it to one score with a third-string quarterback. And there's 20,000 people in the stadium.
Maction, baby.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What is this was the coach at Minnesota's team, the row your boat guy?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm interested about this game more than I thought I would be, more so than I am on Oklahoma and Texas at the moment. Although this game, the intensity of this game is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it's unparalleled. Yeah.
Before we get out of here, we need to give everybody their day back because the Texas A&M game starts in about an hour, and everybody needs to watch the end of these games that are going right now because it's just fantastic. But what is your opinion on what needs to happen in this Ole Miss Arkansas game today?
I've got a few. KJ is not as slippery as Jaden Daniels, but you need to contain him. You need to not have busted coverages because he can hurt you there. I don't know necessarily. Maybe another spy situation, but it won't be exactly like what was kind of necessary to try to just keep a lid on Jaden Daniels because he's just a different animal than what KJ is. I think that's big. Offensively, I want to see what another game from Q and Bentley look like because they had obviously really, really good nights last week. And Jackson Dart just continued to take care of the football. And the offensive line giving him some protection, like it did a week ago. If all those things kind of play out, I don't see a scenario where Ole Miss loses.
Yeah, and defensively, I think everybody needs to realize yesterday was kind of a unicorn for what the matchups were against this defense. Jaden Daniels was a horrible matchup for this defense. Ole Miss did spy him with Suntarian Perkins. Suntarian just couldn't catch him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just that situation. And I think they're going to look a little bit better. I think Jaden Daniels had a 55-yard run against Ole Miss Saturday night. Other than that, LSU only had like 165 yards rushing.
Mm-hmm.
They did a decent job. So if you want hope going in the Arkansas game, Arkansas is going to try and be physical with KJ and Rocket Sanders. Ole Miss is actually holding up pretty well against the run this year. The problem that Ole Miss has are with explosive plays in the safety position. So as long as KJ can't exploit that, which I don't think they have the wide receivers, they don't have the dudes that LSU had.
Yeah.
I think you're in good shape. Ole Miss plays one more team that actually can be a matchup problem. And we have, like I said, there's a lot of water to flow into this bridge. But other than LSU, it's probably only Texas A&M that has the guys that can really stress you out. But they don't have a Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
Should be pretty interesting. John, I hope you have a good time at the stadium tonight. Everybody can look up what you need to wear if you're going to the game. It's a stripe out. You could be in red. You could be in powder. Take care of that. If you want to catch the game, it's on Sirius XM channel 190. It is on the SEC network without Jordan Rogers. It'll just be Cole Kubelik and Tom Hart. So tune in for that. So thank you very much, John, and we will see you next week, buddy.
All right. I appreciate it, Stephen. Thank you.